In America.
Here on the Hill. Thanks, buddy. I'll extend it over to Leland and On Balance.
Here we go.
Right now.
Breaking news, 7 o'clock Eastern. These are the epicenters of politics in America right now. Live pictures of Mar-a-Lago, where Donald Trump is plotting his return to the White House and the White House itself, where Joe Biden's team appears in shock over Trump's victory. In fact, the press pool that is at the White House every day didn't even see the sitting president. He will reportedly address the nation tomorrow and promises to peacefully turn over power to the man he called so many times a threat to democracy. Election Day +1. Welcome to the Ferris Network on television. We know the results. It's in. First tonight, voters have sent a far stronger message in 2024 than they did in 2016. All day, you've been hearing on cable news, probably reading in your Twitter feeds, talking to your friends about why Trump won. You've heard about the women vote, the black vote, the Latino vote, the young men vote, the single women vote, on and on and on. None of that matters nearly as much as what I am about to show you. This ad, one ad, Trump's final ad on television, just 15 seconds, explains everything.
Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
Think about that. That's the line. Kamala is for them. They, them. Trump is for you. Voters heard it, and they believed it. Last night, he promised in his victory speech to deliver on it.
This was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal.
Trump picked up on something. This election proved it. Traditional values still reign supreme in America. This wasn't a left versus right or conservative versus liberal election. It was a traditional versus progressive election. Middle America cares about cultural issues. They care about financial issues. Take a look at the Hispanic vote. Just one thing. Joe Biden won the Hispanic vote in 2020 by a 33-point margin. Harris's margin this election was just 8 points. Seismic.
You look at the Latino community, 70% of the Latino community who work in construction, are farm workers, or hospitality. Those aren't union jobs. They're trying to say, you're telling me that I need to care about X, but what I need to figure out is how do I pay rent?
The Democratic Party has spent a lot of time treating it as an identity group, whether it's Latinx, which sort of fell flat. And so there's been a lot of hand-wringing about this inside Democratic circles, a real split, it was a total misread sort of by the coastal strategists when it comes to how to target working class voters of color.
And still today, when she gave her concession speech about 4 o'clock this afternoon, Kamala Harris showed us, she really did, that she, like her party, and it was fascinating that Chuck Todd used those words, the coastal strategists, they still and probably never will get it.
I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. The fight for freedom, for opportunity, for fairness, and the dignity of all people. A fight for the ideals at the heart of our nation. The ideals that reflect America at our best. That is a fight I will never give up.
So Harris and Democrats refuse to give up a single progressive orthodoxy. They said they had to beat a fascist and a Nazi to save democracy. Yet, she refused to stake out a centrist position on energy, the border, boys and girls sports, crime, the list goes on. She refused to understand or really even have a conversation with Trump's skeptical voters. Her supporters, President Biden, her surrogates, called Trump supporters names. She failed to understand the anger of so many at the Biden-Harris administration. Her closing argument, her last rally, she had Oprah leave her $50 million mansion to lecture paycheck-to-paycheck workers on joy. Donald Trump had construction workers behind him. And so we are left with a very clear mandate from you, the American people. Trump will likely be the first Republican to win the popular vote since 2004. Republicans outperformed in the Senate, and they could very well keep the House because of what I told you. That closing argument. Donald Trump is for you. Believe it, don't believe it. That's why he won. We begin tonight with Chris Cillizza, journalist, senior advisor of the DGA Group. His Substack is called So What? Offers some of the best insight and analysis of the big stories of the day. There it is. I subscribe. You should too. Cillizza, you're smart. You're an analyst. You do all these things. Your email this morning, 7 reasons why Kamala Harris won. I'm just a simple guy, TV anchor. Used to be a journalist. Still am, sort of. At least I play one on TV. I think it's pretty simple. The coastal strategists got it wrong, and no one believed that Kamala Harris cared about people like them.
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't buy your aw shucks routine. Used to be a journalist. No, I think that's I
used to be a street reporter. Now I'm an anchor.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment. Look, the thing I was struck by watching the results come in, people always say Twitter isn't real life. I think for a lot of people who live between New York and D.C. or on the West Coast, they kind of think it is. It's like they think that that's how people think. And the truth of the matter is what we saw happen on Tuesday night was the math just doesn't add up. You can't not win in the Midwest, in the South, and in the Southwest and expect to be elected president. And Leland, you mentioned it, but I just want to put a pin in it because I think it's so important. Donald Trump is going to win the popular vote by about 2 million, maybe a little less than 2 million. That's a really big deal because remember you and I talked about 6 months ago, Harris has to win the popular vote by 3 or 4 points to win the Electoral College. Well, he won the popular vote and the Electoral College, and he won the Electoral College, or he's going to, I think, with more Electoral College votes than he got in 2016 and more Electoral College votes than Joe Biden got in 2020. So this is a mandate. My view on this always is you can like it or you can lump it. You can say, well, everyone who voted for Donald Trump is a dumb, racist, misogynist. But you know what? That's not going to solve Democrats' brand problem. And they cannot sell their candidates outside of the coast, and you cannot win if that's the case.
They can't even sell it on the coast. And this is what I thought was fascinating. Donald Trump lost New York City. Of course, he was going to lose it.
Yep.
Got it. He lost it by the lowest margin since 1988. He lost Cook County 25 points better than he did against Joe Biden.
New Jersey, Leland.
New Jersey
was close.
New Jersey was close. Virginia, he did better by about 10 points. So it's even the places where the coastal strategists live and talk to people at their parties out in the Hamptons and everything else. It doesn't work with even the people who live there.
No, and I'll note, Leland, if I can add one quick thing. Look, this was sweeping. I believe that with the exception of Utah, Donald Trump did better in every single state in 2024 than he did in 2020. That's pretty remarkable, number one. Number two, this wasn't just rural America. Yes, he did better in rural counties than he had before. He also did significantly better in urban counties than he did before.
You said a great line. That's a mandate. It is a mandate to do what?
Okay, so he ran on a couple things. And, Trump on policy is a little bit hard to pin down, but I would say he ran on two very clear things. One, significant tariffs against China and other countries, number one. Number two, he says round up all the people who are here illegally and deport them. I don't know logistically if that can happen. I don't know how exactly we find all of them. I don't know where the money comes from. But to me, those are the two. And I will note, Leland, I do think, look, Scott Tranter, my friend. To be
fair, though,
yes?
Didn't he really run on closing the border? Okay.
He did.
And I'm going to help you economically, and I'm going to end crime. And I'm going to, or at least get a lid on crime. We're not going to let people out just because they had a hard childhood. And number three, and this is where I thought that ad explained it, right? Kamala is for they, them.
Yeah.
It was that Kamala cares about progressive orthodoxy, Latinx, pronouns. Men can be women if they wear dresses, and you have to accept it. It's a traditional values campaign that he ran on.
Yes, I think that's really important to note. I do think the woke stuff from 2020 to 2024 that Kamala Harris did embrace, as did, by the way, Joe Biden and every other Democratic leader, because that's how they got to be Democratic leaders. That stuff does not sit well with a lot of people, including lots of people who I think are probably, would be a registered Democrat or call themselves a Democrat. Yes, I do think that absolutely mattered. I'm glad you played that ad, because I don't know if you and I talked about this off air, but I was in North Carolina right before the election for something unrelated, a soccer tournament for my son. And you know what ad was running constantly? That ad you just played.
And you know what? It ran in Sunday Night Football.
That was how they closed.
It ran in Sunday Night Football. I want to put this up because I think it's sometimes fun to pull back the curtain a little bit and let the viewers in on the fun you and I have. This is your hoodie, right? It's a good-looking hoodie. There he is.
Yes. Dude, it was early in the morning. This is from this morning. I slept like 1 hour. I had to get up, take my kids to look. You can see the light in the background. It's very early in the morning. I had to get up and take my kids to school. I'm not going to put on a suit and tie for that. Lucky I have a shirt on.
No. We're not lucky. We're very thankful.
It's true. The American public is thankful that I have a shirt on.
Hey, this has been a great election, and boy, this is not the beginning of the end or the end. This is the end of the beginning. Now all the fun starts.
Totally right.
All right.
Totally right.
Glad to have you along for the ride, my friend. Good to see you. All right.
Take care, dude.
As Liza just said, Donald Trump has a mandate. Republicans have control of the Senate, likely will maintain control of the House. Why we should never underestimate Republicans' ability to screw things up again.
Because we're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. We will make America safe, strong, prosperous, powerful, and free again. And I'm asking every citizen all across our land to join me in this noble and righteous endeavor. That's what it is. It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite. And we're going to try. We have to try. And it's going to happen. Success will bring us together. I've seen that. America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. We have taken back control of the Senate. Wow, that's good.
There it is. Donald Trump does have a mandate. He also has control of the U.S. Senate, and it's looking more and more likely he will have control of the House of Representatives as well. He had both when he took office in 2017, and a number of things that he wanted to get done didn't get done, like repealing Obamacare, something he promised he would do. That was 2017. The big challenge for Donald Trump right now is to keep the Republicans from fighting amongst each other, and as we like to say on the show, screwing it up. Joining me now, Senate Minority Whip John Thune of South Dakota, who is on anybody's very, very short list to be the Senate Majority Leader. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Congratulations on the big win for Republicans last night. How does Donald Trump, how do you as Republicans and Republican leadership keep from what happened in 2017 happening in 2025?
Well, I think I think we all know a little bit better where we're headed, and at that time it was a bit of a surprise when President Trump won in the 2016 election. It took us a while to get his team set up in place and to get on an issue agenda. There's been a ton of work done already to get ready for him, and we're going to hit the ground running. We're going to help him get his team in place quickly so that they can get to work right away. And then we as a Republican majority in the Senate are going to be working with him and hopefully with a Republican majority in the House to move an agenda that's good for this country, that deals with taxes and extending the 2017 tax law that we got enacted during President Trump's first term in office, and dealing with energy dominance, dealing with the high cost of regulations and what that does to cost us jobs in this country. Broken border, obviously, front and center. And then I would say national security is always an issue that'll be important, especially in the dangerous world in which we now live. And President Trump, I think, brings with him, Leland, obviously, a set of experience, background, and frankly, just a style that I think is going to be really helpful in dealing with a lot of those threats that we face around the world. Because one thing we know is Biden-Harris a projected weakness, and our enemies, our adversaries, prey on that. President Trump will fix that, and we intend, as a Republican majority in the Senate and hopefully in the House as well, to work with him on that issue set that I think is what the election is all about. Mm-hmm. Open borders, high prices. I mean, I think those are the issues that people voted on.
We'll get to open borders in a minute. You said his team, and that means advice and consent of the Senate for his cabinet. Who would you like to see sec state, sec def, and are there any guardrails that Republicans should put on, shall we say, some unusual people that Donald Trump has at times surrounded himself with?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to prepared to give him any advice on who to put into the cabinet, but we assume he's going to select qualified people. And my assumption is, in a key position like the Department of Homeland Security, that secretary who oversees the southern border is going to be somebody with experience and know-how and background that they can bring to the job so that we can get operational control of the southern border. I think more than anything else right now, we want to make sure that particularly in those top 15 positions, which all require a lengthy process of Senate confirmation, then there are some other cabinet positions that don't require as long, but we've got to take the time to get those across the Senate floor, get them installed in their position so they can begin to implement his agenda. And we'll have those conversations with him and his team. We already have had some, and I expect that they're going to send up some very qualified individuals to man each of those key posts that are going to be so essential to him accomplishing his objectives.
You think about foreign policy, the commander-in-chief can make an awful lot of changes pretty quickly, whether it be about Ukraine, whether it be about Iran. We've already seen some indications that Iranian militias are backing down around the Middle East. No big surprise. But when it comes to the border, there's a lot President Trump can do as president day one with executive orders. But if you really want to solve the immigration crisis, if you want to build a big wall, you want to have change the laws about asylum, change the laws of how the southern border is dealt with. Unless you want to break the filibuster, it's going to require some kind of compromise with Democrats on issues. What's the compromise? Is it that you're willing to provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, for kids who were brought here illegally? Is there anything that the mandate will allow you all to compromise on?
Well, and I think that's going to be largely a function of what the president and his team are willing to put forward. Now, first and foremost, I think there are a lot of things he can do by executive action. Clearly, President Biden reversed 94 Trump administration executive orders when it came to the border when they took office. So you can reverse that. Now, some of it probably goes to court and gets litigated, but, figuring out a way to reinstate remain in Mexico, which is something that he worked with the Mexican government on when he was in office, doing away with catch and release. I mean, building building the wall. Fixing the asylum process does take some legislative action, and we want to be there to support what those things that the president wants to get done. But I think when it comes to manpower, when it comes to personnel on the border, when it comes to a wall, be it a physical wall or a technological wall, some of the other policies that were in place while he was in office that gave us operational control of the southern border, we want to see those things put back in place because they worked. And I think he's going to be in a position to do a lot of that, perhaps by executive action. But rest assured that he will have the full backing of Republicans in the Senate and in the House, and hopefully those are majorities in both the House and the Senate in order to enable him to get a lot of that done.
Kamala Harris put on the table breaking the filibuster for the most important of her issues. Is breaking the filibuster for some of Donald Trump's most important issues off the table in your mind?
It is. I mean, we've got to preserve the filibuster. That's the essence of the Senate. You change the filibuster, you not only change the Senate, you change the country. That is the quintessential check and balance that requires a supermajority to do most consequential things in the Senate, and it requires bipartisan input. It gives the minority a voice in our government, which is what the founders intended. It's not easy. It is complicated. They made it hard. They made it hard by design. But I think at the end of the day, what the American people said in this election is, we don't like this policy agenda. We don't like open borders.
We don't like the direction of the country. Yeah.
We don't like the direction of the country, and that's why I hope Democrats, at least Democrats that are logical in thinking about this and what the message was coming from the American people, would be willing to work with President Trump and with Republicans in Congress on some of these issues.
Senator, direct questions, direct answers. We appreciate that as always. Look forward to having you on the program in Washington.
Sounds good. Thanks, Leland.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you. It is the reckoning for Democrats, the one very easy way they could win working class voters back.
Political skill, it is just inspiring. People who don't understand what she had to do to get to this moment. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just very proud of her.
And then she took off her glasses to wipe her tears. To say Democrats are upset about last night is an understatement, but Bernie Sanders, of all people, senator from Vermont, is not surprised. Quote, "It should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party which has abandoned working class people would find that the working class people have abandoned them. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they are right." And now even the most classically liberal of Democrats realize Kamala Harris swung and missed when she tried to move to the center on one issue that's very important to working class voters: immigration.
It's all about immigration and the economy, but immigration has been a terrible decision for Democrats. I don't know who they think they were playing to when they let millions of people come cruising through the border at their own will. Because of their own decisions, they came running through that border, and they didn't do a thing about it, and a lot of people are very angry about that.
Probably would have helped if Chris Matthews had said that weeks, months, years ago, but there you go. With us now, Bat Sargon, opinion editor for Newsweek, author of Second Class: How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women. We have the cover, and it's important to put up because when your book came out in April, I think there was a lot of skepticism among Democrats who said, look, the economy is getting better, inflation is getting under control, Joe Biden is going to tell everyone how great the economy is under Joe Biden, and silly you. Was last night vindication?
I think so, yeah, in a big way. First of all, it's miraculous what happened. Donald Trump not only won, but he won with a huge mandate to lead. And the way that he did that was by running up enormous margins of people who were, until very recently, Democratic voters, whether it was 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago. There were so many people who flipped in Donald Trump's favor. And the reason for that is it's not rocket science. How do you get Democrats to vote for you? You run a pro-labor playbook. And it was the exact pro-labor playbook that used to be the Democrats that they abandoned to cater to the highly educated elites and the dependent poor, abandoning the entire middle and working class. And it was just there for the taking. And Donald Trump showed up and said, you know what? I'm going to cater to these voters. And he did it with tariffs. He did it with a trade war with China. And crucially, with immigration controls. Because, of course, labor is like everything else. The ironclad law of supply and demand holds. The more you have of something, the cheaper it is. And Donald Trump said, I don't want it to be cheap to employ American workers. They should have access to the American dream. ...
The cultural part of this is significant, right? There's a traditional value American that he appealed to that working class Democrats had felt abandoned or vilified, if you will, because they kept traditional values. But I remember interviewing you when you were a progressive. You are a progressive Jew. You should be a Democratic supporter by all normal metrics that people would look at. Is there anything they can do to win you back?
Absolutely, yeah. If they learn the lesson here, I'm available. I'm here for the having. I'm not on one side or the other. I'm on the side of the working class. I'm on the side of the hard-working American. Is it right to call them,
when we say working class, right? Frank Luntz calls them paycheck to paycheck voters. Is it a diploma divide? Is it because you have teachers who are making less than plumbers, but the plumbers are supporting Donald Trump and the teachers are supporting Kamala Harris? Where is the divide? How do we define these people?
I think it is a diploma divide. The Democrats over the last 60 years created an economy that was an upward funnel, an upward transfer of wealth from working class Americans, people who work with their hands for a living, people who are employed full time but don't have a diploma, don't have that degree, into the pockets of the elites, the top 20% in the professional managerial class, people who employ working class people. People who, when you have an open border and you have 15 million illegal people crossing that border, they are going to be employing those people and paying them less than they would have to pay an American. That's an upward transfer of wealth to the leftist elites. And to mask this crime, which by and large was against Black Americans and Hispanic Americans, to mask this crime, they called anybody who pointed it out a racist. And the American people are not standing for that anymore.
Two things here. You talked about if there is a reckoning, if Democrats change and understand. This was Joe Scarborough this morning. Take a listen.
I think we have to acknowledge that Donald Trump knows our country better than we do. I think he figured out that anger and, frankly, fear were way more powerful than appealing to people's better angels. That anger and fear were going to work in this election, whether you're afraid of immigrants or afraid of people who are trans. He figured that out.
Even in that, though, right, you're afraid of immigrants. It's not that you are upset that groceries are too much.
That is an alibi for rich people, okay? That is an alibi for rich thieves who have stolen wages from working class people. And to justify the theft, they say, oh, those working class people are racist because they are opposed to losing wages. They're opposed to not being able to support their children. This is the Democrats' entire playbook. Of course I'm gettable. Do you know it was Bernie Sanders in 2015 who said open borders is a Koch brothers proposal? And you fast forward to 2019 and Bernie Sanders was agreeing with all the other Democrats that he would decriminalize illegal border crossing.
And give free health care to illegal immigrants who came in. Right. There is starting to be this odd, almost horseshoe magnet effect that at the bottom, you have Bernie Sanders on one side in the Senate and you have Josh Hawley, Republican senator from Missouri, who conceivably are about as far apart on certain issues. And then on these, what would you call them, populist paycheck issues, they're now coming together. Populism seems to be great for getting power. It does not often end up well for the country.
I don't know how you can say that. I don't know how you can look at the first Trump term and say that wasn't a great.
But that wasn't populism.
Of course it was populism. He closed the border.
He gave billionaires tax cuts.
That's not populism. Working people tax cuts.
He did that as well. But giving billionaires.
He imposed massive tariffs on steel and aluminum. He started a trade war with China. You think billionaires like that stuff? You think billionaires
like the tax cuts? They like the Dow going up.
You think they like when he stops the flow of slaves into this country through the southern border? he made a lot of billionaires very angry, which is why they all lined up behind Nikki Haley in the primary. They didn't want him.
Well, they lined up with Ron DeSantis, then Nikki Haley.
Exactly right.
And now, I think it's pretty interesting. We saw today Jeff Bezos congratulating Donald Trump publicly. Sam Altman, who's about as liberal and progressive as you get, the head of OpenAI, lining up and running the Musk playbook. What's the understanding?
I mean, honestly, a billionaire here, a billionaire there, 75% of hedge fund donors to political parties donated to the Democrats.
That's because it sounds good in the Hamptons.
I mean, sure, but the Democrats are now the party of the rich. Donald Trump has very few billionaires. A quarter of billionaires gave to Joe Biden, and Trump only got 14% of billionaires, right? So
he got Elon Musk.
He got the most support one, arguably. But thank you so much.
It was good to see it. This was a lot of fun. You predicted this.
I really did.
We've been having Baji on the show for years for this very reason. The book came out. We remember the backlash. Well-deserved victory lap.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Donald Trump did something last night no other Republican has since 1972. He's the second Republican since Reconstruction to do it. Why you should care, whether you like Donald Trump or not. President of the United States.
As America's biggest story continues to unfold, trust NewsNation to tell it with respect for all Americans.
We have told them they should be broadcasting NewsNation.
This is the biggest call of the night. No one has been close to NewsNation because of DDHQ. This was an historic night.
No matter who you voted for, NewsNation is news for all America.
All right, so that was 1:23 a.m. this morning. 25 minutes before any other network called the race. In fact, it was 4 hours before most of the networks called the presidential race. The man behind that call is with us now, Scott Tranter, Director of Data Science at Decision Desk HQ, who has not slept, but we believe has changed his North Face quarter zip. Hey, man, first of all, congratulations. Wow. So good. Georgia, North Carolina calls hours ahead of time, and then the Pennsylvania and Alaska calls. What allowed you guys last night, first of all, to be so fast, but more importantly, to be so spot on?
Yeah, we have a great vote collection team. We've got over 1,000 people on the ground. We have built relationships with county officials so we can scrape the data on election night. And then we have a race call team that has done the homework. So we get the data faster, we crunch the numbers faster, and then we have no bureaucracy. As soon as the data says that we have a winner, then we go out and say it. And I think that's important, especially given all the turmoil around elections. We just follow the data.
No, I think it's a great point. And in Decision Desk HQ, we said this last night, is separate from NewsNation. You don't have to check with the executives upstairs. You have to check with somebody else to see, hey, what's this mean? Or are we okay with this? Or is the campaign going to be upset with us if we do this? It was, here's the data, here's the call, we go. This was, and you and I talked about this, right? Just because the polling was close doesn't mean the race was going to be close. Your over-under was somewhere around 5 a.m. My over-under was 2:30 a.m. Very, very easy for me to get that brag in there. I just wanted to just get it there. But there's so many people now who are so mad at the pollsters. Here's Jon Stewart. Take a listen.
I do want to very quickly send a quick message to all the pollsters, the election pollsters. Blow me. I don't ever want to from you again, ever.
As a pollster, do you take offense to that?
No, we've been maligned for basically since polling began, just like weathermen out there. Look, the DDHQ Hill forecast, we gave a slight edge to Donald Trump going into the night, 54% chance of winning. I think our forecast and polling average held up pretty well, but this was a close race in the sense that it was hard to figure out who had an edge. Didn't mean someone didn't have an edge like Donald Trump did. It's just we didn't have anything to tell us who did, and that's why it was so down to the wire, and that's why I think people think it was surprising.
I think there's a point here that saying you don't know, saying it's a toss-up is the fairest way of talking about something in the days up to an election. Because if you say, hey, look, it's very simple, okay? This is 1988 all over again, or this is 84. It's going to be a landslide. If it is close, that's putting your hand on the scale, because one side supporters say, I don't need to go out. The other side supporter says, hey, it's a foregone conclusion. So being willing to say, hey, we don't know, it's a coin flip, it's a jump ball, it's hanging on a knife's edge, it could fall this way and fall that way. That's the fairest way to do it. You guys were spot on about the Senate. I think everybody's been surprised that it's gone. There's more Senate seats now than the Republican majority was expected. Take us through the House. Your home state of California seems unable to do democracy. And we're going to have to wait a week for those House races. Are things really, is it that Donald Trump is pulling more House races along for Republicans?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Look, Donald Trump, it looks like he's going to win the popular vote, which, was somewhat surprising there. That graphic you put on the screen, there are multiple counties, thousands of counties around the country that have moved right. California, VP Harris is definitely going to win California, but not at the margin that Joe Biden won California 4 years ago. The whole state's moving right, as well as other states that don't normally go Republican. I think that's attributable to Donald Trump, and that's going to probably carry down to the House. That's why we think the Republicans are probably going to end up with between 220 and 225 seats. Wow. And it'll be clinched with some of these Central and Southern California House races.
That would be huge, and that would also give Republicans a lot of maneuvering room, and Speaker Johnson a lot more room than he had before. Tranter, I would suggest when you hang up on the Zoom here that you stand up, lest you don't fall asleep at the desk. Congrats on a great night, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you. Incredible. If Trump had lost last night, he faced jail time for multiple felonies. So what happens to all those criminal cases?
To help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president.
He was enjoying himself last night. America elected last night a convicted felon who still faces 44 federal charges and could still face a sentencing hearing on November 26th in the New York criminal case. NBC News reports the Justice Department may even move to wrap up Trump's 2 federal cases to fall in line with policy that a sitting president can't be prosecuted. You think? Former Deputy Assistant Attorney General for George W. Bush, Tom Dupree, New York City criminal defense attorney Michael DeSharo with us now to discuss. Tom, I'm going to start with you because that is the news on the federal cases that's just coming out. All right, so Jack Smith out of a job, and what happens? They end the prosecution, or they say in 4 years we may bring him back, bring it back up?
No, they have to drop the charges. This is the end of the line. What I think last night's voting results mean is that the outcome of all the Trump prosecutions is not going to be decided by a jury in a courtroom, but by voters at the ballot box. As far as the 2 federal criminal cases are concerned, when Trump comes into office at noon on January 20th, he will immediately direct his attorney general to fire Jack Smith, if Jack Smith is still serving as special counsel. As you noted, NBC is saying that it's possible Garland will terminate Smith before then, but under any of these scenarios, the one certainty is that as of January 20th, both of those federal criminal prosecutions come to an abrupt end with no possibility of restarting them.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking about Jack Smith dusting off his resume. Look, there may be some law firms in D.C. or New York that would love to have him. Michael, there's an interesting thing here, right? Because the New York convictions are state charges. He can't pardon himself.
Correct.
Kathy Hochul could, has chosen not to, at least so far. She's the governor. Are we going to have the president-elect in the New York City courthouse for a sentencing hearing?
No.
the first question is, does he show up on the 26th? And if he doesn't, what happens? Well,
are they going to send the NYPD for him?
Judge Merchan issues a warrant, and then they knock on the White House door, and the Secret Service stops them because it's federal law. You can't touch the president. So there's motions to have the case dismissed on various grounds. Judge Merchan may do that. It may be delayed again. He's in the most unenviable position because there may be a motion made to federal court to move it because we're in an area that has never been done before, completely unprecedented. And the Southern District may get involved and just dismiss the case, but there's not a chance that Donald Trump spends a minute behind bars, or I'm convinced he's not going to show up. I just don't. I could see the defense writing a letter saying, listen, he's president-elect, he's a little busy. And at that point, Judge Merchan has to issue a warrant or let it go.
You think about it, it's pretty remarkable, right? Just there's the political side, there's the legal side, but when they intersected was with the mugshot, right? And Donald Trump's campaign sold pictures with his mugshot, and the Democrats thought that this was going to be the end. I remember that night when it was taken in Georgia, and this was sort of this oh my God moment, and it is not materialized. It backfired. Letitia James, the New York Attorney General who ran on quote unquote getting Trump, held a press conference today. Take a listen.
I congratulate the President-elect Donald Trump. And if possible, we will work with his administration. But we will not compromise our values or our integrity or our principles. We did not expect this result, but we are prepared to respond to this result.
I've seen people with less emotion give eulogies and less sadness. Dupree, what does it mean, and I'll give you the last 30 seconds, we will respond to this result? That almost sounds like a threat.
Yeah, I think, Leland, the message, and she was forcing out every word of that statement. She did not like giving it, but I think what she wanted to make clear is that she doesn't intend to change course. She intends to hold the incoming Trump administration to account. She intends to pursue litigation against them. She intends to be a fighter and doing everything she can to halt Donald Trump. She was clear on that on her campaign, and I think she's sending the message to her base. None of that's going to change on her watch.
Look, and you still have the case, the civil fraud case brought by her office. Tom, Michael, this concludes your service to On Balance for the Trump criminal cases. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good to see both of you. More legal issues ahead, though, certainly with the Trump administration. All right, see you back here, 10 o'clock for a post-election special. Here's Chris.
Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power. While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign.
So there we are. I'm Chris Cuomo. Welcome to all the new people joining News Nation. Our team had the key election calls right and first. And there's a concern